Hello guys, what's up? I hope you're doing okay. Before going into the code and into this explanation, I want first to remind you about my platform, the Alibu Coding platform, where you can find so many useful courses and where you can learn a lot within this platform. As a reminder, you know that I have courses in French and English, so just go ahead with the filter right here, filter the correct language or the best language that suits you better, and go ahead and use this platform and learn more. Also, you can get certified now with Alibu Coding. Once you finish a course, you will receive or you will get a certification. Just go ahead and share it with your friends, share it on social media, and tag me, and I will reshare it back again. Get the certification and show it, share it with your friends, with your network, and show that you are learning from Alibu Coding, and tag me as I mentioned, and I will share it again, especially on LinkedIn. You can also publish it on Discord. I will create a special channel for that, for the certifications. Let me know, let me see that you are learning from Alibu Coding. If you're new here, just take 1 second and hit the subscribe button so you can get all the new videos from us. Okay, so I want to see you part of this cool channel, and also I want to see you part of the nice platform Alibu Coding, where you can learn a lot, and really a lot. Okay, so that's it. Only 1 second, just click the subscribe button and that's it. Let's go. So in the last video, we stopped where we implemented a generic validator or generic validation object or objects validator. And this is what we did, just as a reminder. So this is what we did. And then when we go to the service, we call it and we try to get the validation errors. So I told you that I will give you a better solution to handle this or to implement this one. So I did not forget that, and we will see it in the end of this video. So stay tuned and don't go away. What I want to talk about in this video is what happened or what we should do in case we have exceptions in our applications. What does exceptions mean? Like, for example, if I have internal server exception, or I have something which is not found. I want, for example, to get some information from the database or from somewhere. I want to fetch data, but this data does not exist. So my application will throw an exception. We first think about is that we will have the exception in our console or in our logs. But be sure, or keep in mind that this exception also will be thrown to the REST API client or to our REST client. So we need really to handle this, and this is what we will see in details in this video. We will see how we can handle exceptions. Yes, because handling the exceptions will make always our API secure. Well, secure, I'm not talking about security, but secure from the outside. So the client or our customer, he does not need to know what happened in the backend or in our application. He doesn't even know to see the technical stack or the technical exception or the exception that happened in our API. So this is what we will do. But first of all, let's go to our controller, this one, and I will create a new endpoint, a get mapping. And here we have /AP1/API v1 greetings, and here I will just tell it that /error or exception. Okay, so I will do public response entity. I will keep it like that maybe, and here throw exception. Okay, throw exception. So what I will do return response entity dot OK of my service dot throw exception. I will just create a method in my service to throw an exception. Okay, so this one I can tell that it's even a void. I think this no, it should not be a void, but let's say it's a string, for example, and here I will just return an empty string. But before that, or even that, I will do throw new illegal state exception, or as you like, like you can throw any exception you want. So here I'm gonna throw an exception. Some exception happened. All right, so this is the bootstrapping of our application, or like what I want to show you in this video. So the next step we will do is we will go to our Postman and we will try to invoke this endpoint and see what will happen. Okay, so let's do it. Okay, so let's restart our application and test these changes and see what will be the output when we make a call to this error endpoint. So here it's a get mapping first of all, and here it's going to be slash error, and I click on send, and what we see here, we see that we have this timestamp and we have this 500 and internet server error, and this is the path. So this is not good. It's not good to return 500 to your customers. It's not good. Like I really ensure that it's not good. You really need to handle your exceptions in the backend. So, and this is what we will do. So now let's just talk about, let me explain what I mean with that. Let's first understand how the exception handling works within the framework Spring. So we have this scenario here, right here. So we have a customer will send an HTTP post to our backend, and we will send a JSON, and let's take in this case an invalid one. So the customer or the client of our API will send null, invalid email and a date in the future, which is not okay for us. So we don't accept this kind of data because we have a validation and so on and so forth. So the classic way, or the normal scenario that happened is, so we send the post, it goes to the controller, and then we will send it to the service. We do the transformation right here, like transforming the DTO to an entity. But before transforming, of course, what we need to do, we want to perform a validation. So we will make a call to our validator, and here we will check and we will find out that this object is not compatible with our management rules or with our validation rules that we already set up. So what will happen? As you know, when we throw an exception, so what happens in this case means that the exception will fall down until the controller or the first method that made the call. So the exception will always go back to the controller level. Okay, so as you can see here in this step number 3, we will send the object to the validator, and the validator, he will find that this object is not okay. So what we will do, we will throw an exception here, as you can see in the step 4. So the exception will go back to the service, of course, and then the service will send it back to the controller. And here comes the role of our exception handler. Having an exception handler means what? Means that we have some kind of listener on all the controllers, or on one controller. It depends on the way that we want to implement it. And this listener will try always to listen and detect and check if we have an exception occurs within our controller. Okay, having this listener on the controller level or globally within the application does not always means that we will catch any exceptions that occurs within our controllers. Okay, but it will only capture the handled exceptions. Okay, so for example, if I want to handle all the null pointer exceptions that may occur within our controllers or my application controllers, so it will be handled. For example, if I don't handle the entity not found exception within my global exception handler or my local exception handler, like local I mean the one on the controller level, so if I don't handle this exception, it will not be catched and it will not be handled. So it will be thrown as a classic one, and it will be thrown to the log or to the console, or it will be sent back to the user. So here, just to end with this explanation, what we have here, we have this global exception handler that will listen on all the controllers of our application, and every time we have an exception, we will try to handle it and do something, and within this global exception handler, we will send back a response to the user. So instead of reporting an exception to the customer or to our client or our API client, so we want to send back, or we want to return a comprehensive error message telling, okay, something occurred within the controller, or object not valid, and so on and so forth. So this is how mainly, or like in a graphic way, this is how exception handling works. So Spring already has something to help us implementing this exceptions black hole, and there are different ways of implementation. So first of all, we have a controller level implementation. So means I know that some exception or like exceptions can happen in this controller. So let me just collapse this one. Yeah. So I know that some exceptions can happen here, or I know that this method can throw or will throw an exception. So what I can do, I will create a method. I will call it handle exception. And this handle exception, let's say it's a void, or we can change the type later on. So this handle exception will be the method that will absorb all the exceptions that will happen in this place or in this controller. So let's assume that we want to get or to intercept all the exceptions that coming from here, for example, or we can just say we want to catch exception. But here we know that we have an illegal state exception, so I will pass it as a parameter in here, exception. And now I want, if I need it, of course, I will explain all that. And this, instead of a void, I will also return a response entity like that. So here I will say a response entity dot let's say bad request maybe, or I don't know, but okay, bad request is fine. And here I guess we can pass a body, and for the body, for example, we can say something happened and something happened. Okay, please contact the admin. Just an example. Okay, and I want to return this one, of course, and let me line break this one. So now we have an exception handler. We have a method that will handle the exception, and if I don't need this one, I don't need to pass it. But in case, for example, instead of this body, I can use exception.getMessage to display the message. So maybe let's do so. .get message, and this one will return the message, this one, some exception happened. All right, but this is not it. This is not it. We're still missing something. So we have a method here, but Spring doesn't know about this one. He doesn't know that this method will handle the exception because the name means nothing. We need to add an annotation to this method, and this annotation is called exception handler. And this exception handler, as we can see here, it takes a value which is a list of throwables, a list of exceptions. So we can tell this exception handler to catch any exception, that occurs, or if I want to be more specific, I can tell it that I want only to catch illegal state exceptions in here. So anytime an illegal exception happens here in this controller, it will be intercepted. It will be absorbed in here, and we will have this response entity. So let's go ahead and restart our application and test these changes and see what will be the output of this method. Let's make a second call to the get mapping, and let's see what will be the output of that one. Okay, let's now go back to our Postman and click on send again. So here we see that we have some exception happened, and we no longer have this 500, but we have the 400, the one that we sent from here. There is one thing which is really important. Here, this method will catch only illegal state exceptions. And if I change this one, the illegal state exception which is thrown from this method will not be catched or will not be handled. Let's prove that. For example, I can use entity not found exception in here, whatever, and I can also provide it in here. And I will restart the application and just want to show you that if you don't provide the exception in here, like here, as I mentioned, it takes a list of exceptions, so we can provide as many exceptions as we want. Now I will go back here and send again, and we see that we still have this 500 because this handle exception method only catches the entity not found exceptions, like in this case. But if we bring it back to the illegal state exception, it will work again as expected. All right, so far so good. Now imagine we have a lot of controllers, let's say 50 controller, and in each controller we can have, let's say, 2 or 3 exceptions that may occur. Illegal state exception, entity not found exception, and some of for example violation exception, also like any other type of exception, even custom exceptions. But what we need to do in that case, we should have as many exception handler as the number of exception we have. So for example, I want to have a special treatment for the illegal state exception, like meaning I want to return a different error message. I want to handle differently the entity not found exception. I want to handle differently the other exception, and so on and so forth. So in this case, we will have, for example, let's say 4 or 5 exception handler methods per controller, and this one will be multiplied by the number of controllers. Like if we have 10 controllers, we need to implement 50 methods to handle exceptions, and this will be somehow redundant, because if I have a legal state exception in this controller, it will be the same implementation or the same handling for the other controllers. So what we need to do, or like, okay, not what we need to do, sorry, all right, so the question is there a better way to do that? There is, like, does Spring provide us a better way to do that? The answer is yes. Yeah, there is a better way. There is a better way. And this is what we will see right now. So instead of having this exception handler in here, we need to do, or we need to implement it differently. What we need to do is creating a class that will handle, or that will group all these exception handlers. And what we need to do is, let's go ahead and create a class. I will create it in a package, call it handler dot, I will call it exception handler. But this one will be global, right? This one will be used in all the API. So I'm just gonna call it global exception handler. In this global exception handler, as we mentioned, we need, or we want to move all the exception handler methods inside that one. So let me move, first of all, this one. And now I have one, like, or this method in here. But is this sufficient? Nope, not yet. Because Spring needs to know that this class is an exception handler, is a global exception handler, or is a controller, because this exception handler annotation works with controllers. With this one, works with controllers. So we need to tell Spring that this is a controller, but this is not a classic type or a normal controller, but it's a different or special controller. So the annotation is REST controller advice. So when we tell Spring that this is a REST controller advice, he will know that we have exception handling. And as I mentioned before, if you have a different exception and you want to handle it differently, you need also whether to create a handling exception with, okay, let's do it. So here, for example, I want to handle the entity not found exception. In case I have entity not found exception, if I need the exception, I can pass it here. Otherwise, I can just remove it. I don't need this. For example, if I don't need it, I can, here it will be not found, for example, and the body would be something. Okay, let's say just not found dot build. Okay. So if I have an entity not found exception occurs in my backend, it will be intercepted in here. But if you have another type of exception, you need to add it in here, which is not in here. It will not be handled as we saw together before. All right, so this is it. Let me restart the application and test the changes, because there is nothing more that we need to provide here. Spring will automatically pick this class and implement, or like check anytime if there is an exception happening in the API, and if it's handled here, he will just try to handle and return it. So let's restart the application and check that always we are catching the illegal state exception. So I'm gonna restart the application and see. So now let's just click on send, and we see that we have this correct error message. The last part, or now, what we would do is I will keep my promise. If you remember, I gave you a promise at the beginning that for this service or for this validator, we will implement it in a really better way. So just follow me. Here, what I want to do is I want just to call this greeting validator dot validate, and that's it. That's it. So I want to validate my object, and then I want to do something. Okay, but the question is, if my object is not valid, I need to inform the client. I need to inform my customer about this. So I will go here, instead of a set of string, I will just transform this one to a void. And in here, I would remove this return. So Here I will create a var. I will call it error messages. So this is my error messages, and what I want to do here, I want to throw I think I have validation exception, something like that, which is a pre-built one. And let me see what this validation exception takes as inputs. So it takes a message, it takes throwable. Okay, so this is not good. And what we will do, or what I will do, I will create my custom exception. So here I will just go ahead and create a package I will call exceptions, and here object not valid exception, for example. Object not valid exception, and here it should extend runtime exception because I want this exception to happen in the runtime. And within this exception, I just want one thing for now, which is a set. Nope, not that one. I want a private set of string which will hold my error messages. Okay, and for this one I want a getter, and I need the builder here. Well, I don't need a builder. I will just add the data in here, and that's it. Okay, a data, and also I will add the required args constructor and the all args constructor, and here I will make this one fine. Okay, let's go back to our class. So now here all I did is just I created a custom exception because I need to return that one. And here I will return a new object, object not valid exception, and here I will just pass the error messages as parameter. Because why I created this one? Because I need to pass the error messages as a param. All right, so now it's almost done. Yeah, it's almost done. Let's go back to our exception handler. So here we have the handler, and now I want to handle a different exception, which is my exception, the object not valid exception, which is this one. And here I need it as a parameter here because I need to get the exception from it. So here it will be a bad request, and before we do build, I want to do the body. Like I need the body here, and the body will be the exp, or like my exception dot get error messages. So that's it. Let's go ahead and change, well, not change, but test the changes. Sorry. Okay, so let's go ahead and test the changes. All we need to do is restart the application, and we need to see that every time, or like anytime I want to go, where is my controller? It's this one. So every time I try to post a new greeting and I have something missing, or like some missing information, I want to get some valuable error messages. So this is what we will see next. Okay, I guess I need here we need only the data. Okay. Here I need to remove this method. I don't need it anymore. Let's just do some cleanup. Okay, so now the application is starting. Let's move on and just change this one to a post method, remove this, and let's check the body. We have this one, and now if I click send, let's see what will happen. So we see that we have an object. It's of course it's a table, or it's an array, and it contains the error messages. And this is what we want to do, or like this is how we can handle, or like how we can valid objects and handle all the issues within one place, like we did in this global exception handling. So instead of writing a lot of implementation in here and just delegate it later on to the service, and the service will check if we have violations or not, all we need to do is to throw an exception and then absorb this exception using our global exception handler. So that's it for this video. Thanks a lot for watching, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button. Also smash the like button. So give me a thumbs up so I can continue on producing these videos for you guys. Okay, thanks a lot, and see you the next time.